Okay. Good afternoon. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining our webinar, Becoming Bear Aware in Connecticut, Learning How to Keep Bears Wild and People Safe. My name is Annie Hornish, and I'm the Connecticut State Director for the Humane Society of the United States. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your schedules to join us. If you have any questions during the webinar, please enter them into the Q&A box on your screen, and we'll try to answer as many as we can at the end of the webinar. As you can see, this is being recorded. On today's webinar, I'll be joined by my colleagues from the Wildlife Department of the Humane Society of the United States, Wendy Kiefover, Sam Haggio, and Jill Fritz, as well as some of our wonderful partners from the Connecticut Coalition to Protect Bears, who will each cover sections of this presentation. Megan Maycomber from the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters, Nicole Rivard from Friends of Animals, Joanne Basile from Connecticut Votes for Animals, and Laura Simon from the Connecticut Wildlife Rehabilitators Association. Today, you'll learn strategies that will promote peaceful coexistence with bears, as well as effective non-lethal strategies should conflicts between people and bears occur. You're not alone in wanting humane treatment of our state's small bear population. This is something the majority of Connecticut people want. How do we know this? A 2018 study, sponsored in part by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies, found that public desire for peaceful coexistence with wildlife is growing all across America, including here in Connecticut. The largest group in the nation are mutualists, who were defined as those who see animals as family or companions, deserving of care and rights like humans, and who respond positively to a vision of humans and wildlife living side by side. The report showed a value shift in recreation that indicates that interest in hunting and fishing is declining, while interest in wildlife viewing is increasing. Here in Connecticut, only 1% of the population hunts. Wildlife watchers, hikers, mountain bikers, dog walkers, and horseback riders greatly outnumber hunters in Connecticut. The good news is that not only do people want humane resolutions to conflicts with wildlife when they occur, the science backs the use of humane, non-lethal resolutions as the most effective strategy. Recreational hunting is the biggest source of mortality for black bears nationwide. Here in Connecticut, we fortunately do not allow bear hunting. In the latest population study done in 2014 by Yukon researchers, there were only 235 adult bears in the northwest corner where hunting legislation has been proposed. The study projected approximately 400 adult bears statewide, and the population of bears has not been studied since then. Unfortunately, the media tends to use headlines that stoke fear of black bears, honing in on increased sightings and incidents involving black bears. However, the Yukon study highlighted that every sighting is not a unique bear, rather multiple sightings of the same bear. Further, the overwhelming majority of reported incidents involve bears getting into trash and toppling bird feeders, and could be avoided if humans simply modified their behavior. Vehicle collisions have been a significant source of black bear mortality in Connecticut. From the most recent data, car hits alone would have offset any annual population gains. So please slow down while driving. And finally, there have been recent efforts to institute bear hunting in Connecticut. The American Wildlife Values Study pointed out that the values of our state agency, the Connecticut Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, or DEEP, are misaligned with the values of the Connecticut people. DEEP promotes a bear hunt, but people want to coexist peacefully. And if conflicts occur, people want humane resolutions. So this is why we're here today, to help educate about bears and their value to the ecosystem we share, to find humane solutions when conflicts arise, and most importantly, conflict prevention strategies. So let's get started. To discuss an overview about bears and why they're critical to our ecosystem is my colleague, Wendy Kiefover, native carnivore specialist for the Humane Society of the United States.
Thank you, Annie. Before we get into the nitty-gritty about coexisting with bears, we thought it would be fun to go over some basic facts about black bears that show what remarkable animals they are. First, their brain size. Bears have very large brains. They're highly perceptive and intelligent animals. In fact, their intelligence has been compared to that of great apes. They're able to, for example, estimate quantities, that is to count, and they can also use tools. They're extremely familial animals, and they form close social attachments with their kin. Mother bears usually breed only every 2 or 3 years, and they will stay with their cubs for about 18 months. And although they're called black bears, they can also be light brown or blonde. There's even a subspecies of black bears in Canada with white fur known as spirit bears. Black bears are omnivorous carnivores. Because of their canine teeth, they are considered carnivores, although 90% of their diet comes from plants like acorns and berries. They also eat colonial insects like bees and ants, and they'll eat honey, carrion, and fish. Bears have an excellent sense of smell, 7 times greater than that of a bloodhound. When bears stand on their hind legs, it's not a sign of aggression, but one of curiosity. The bear is trying to get a better sense of smelling, hearing, or sight. If they aren't killed through hunting or vehicle collisions, bears can live to about 18 to 20 years in the wild. And lastly, bears are excellent swimmers and climbers. Their claws give them a good grip, and cubs will often climb trees to escape predators. People value bears for their considerable ecological and aesthetic purposes. They're one of the most photographed and watched animals across the continent. Healthy ecosystems need species such as bears. Their feeding activities increase biological diversity. Studies found that bears help ecosystems by dispersing seeds. While grubbing for insects, bears break apart logs, which helps the decomposition process and helps return nutrients to the soil. They also open up forest canopies by breaking down branches while feeding. This helps sunshine to reach the forest floor, increasing plant diversity. In systems where bears eat fish, they leave fish remains and also their own nitrogen-rich urine along creek corridors, and this promotes plant growth. And in a brand new study, biologists found that when bears are awake, they act as bodyguards for gray foxes because bobcats and coyotes avoid bears' range. All of these behaviors are critical to increasing biodiversity and in turn creating healthy, sustainable ecosystems, especially forest ecosystems. Now is the time to protect our bears, and you can help reduce conflicts between people and bears by becoming more bear aware. To discuss how to do this, Megan Macomber from the Connecticut League of Conservation Voters is going to help us out.
Thank you, Wendy. Apart from the current challenges bears across the country already face, such as habitat loss, hunting, wildlife trafficking, and vehicle strikes, we also need to take the potential future harms from climate change into account. These are all factors that impact bear populations. Unfortunately, when communities start experiencing interactions with bears, too often state wildlife agencies promote hunting, citing these interactions as a reason to manage bear populations. It's worth noting that every bear sighting is not a different bear, and the overwhelmingly majority of so-called nuisance behaviors by bears in Connecticut involve toppled garbage cans and bird feeders, which means they could have actually been prevented by modifying our own behavior. For example, of the 3,500 black bear damage reports in Connecticut in 2020, over 1,100 involved bird feeders, 1,300 involved trash, 86 involved livestock, and 37 involved beehives. A host of scientific studies show that hunting does nothing to resolve human-bear conflicts. Hunters generally remove the non-problem bears from the population, those that are not involved in nuisance behaviors and stay deep in the woods. Also, hunting is not needed to manage bear populations, since bear populations are slow to grow due to a variety of mortality factors, such as food availability, slow reproduction, vehicle collisions, and other factors. As a keystone species, bear populations are regulated already by habitat and social interactions. We are adding a lot of additional mortality already with cars, habitat loss, and other factors. Hunting bears causes additive mortality, which is a way of saying that the kill rates are higher than what would naturally occur. Because hunters typically target adult breeding animals, this disrupts their social structure and can even lead to indirect mortalities, like increased killing of cubs if a male bear is killed by hunters and a new bear comes into his old territory. Black bears are also susceptible to overkill by hunters because they're really slow breeders. Female bears don't start breeding until they're about 3 years old and only have about 2 to 3 cubs per litter. Cub survival is only about 50%, and they only have litters every 2 to 3 years. Because of all these things, bears rely on the social stability that hunting seasons could really jeopardize, especially with all of the additional stressors they face. We've talked about like loss of habitat and food sources from urban development, climate change related events such as drought and vehicle collisions. In a nutshell, hunting does not solve or prevent bear conflicts. If a bear does get too comfortable around people, maybe because he's been food conditioned by getting a free meal from someone's dumpster, a recreational hunting season neither prevents nor resolves that problem. If one bear is removed, but the food attractant remains, there will be more bears coming around. It's like trying to fix a leaky faucet with a bucket. Preventing these conflicts from happening in the first place is being bear aware and implementing the steps we'll talk about today is the most effective way and the most humane solution. And now I'm going to pass it to Joanne Bazile from Connecticut Votes for Animals to talk about the life cycle of bears. Joanne, are you here?
Joanne, unmute.
My apologies. Okay, thanks, Megan. And hello, everyone. The graphic shows the general life cycle of black bears, which we'll go through. But before I begin, I want to clarify some terminology. In the winter, bears enter a deep, long sleep called torpor. Even though it's commonly referred to as a hibernation, it's really, technically, it's really torpor. For this presentation, though, we're just going to use the term hibernation. When bears hibernate, they have a significant reduction in their metabolism with both lowered breathing and body temperatures. Going through their life cycle briefly, we'll start in the late fall when a pregnant mother bear enters her den. If she's eaten enough to obtain sufficient body fat when she enters the den for hibernation, the embryos she is carrying will implant in her womb. But if she's in poor body condition, meaning she hasn't eaten enough good food prior to hibernation, her body will reabsorb those embryos and either it won't give birth to cubs at all, or will give birth to a fewer number of cubs. This is one critical way that bears limit their population size. Gestation for bear cubs is usually from November to mid or late January. Cubs are typically born in the late winter, and the number of cubs is dependent on both the age of the mother and how much body fat she has put on before hibernation. Bears and their cubs then come out of the den in the spring. Another fun fact is that cubs are born during hibernation, and they often nurse from a sleeping mom. The mother spends the summer basically teaching her cubs how to be bears. Black bear mothers are extremely perceptive, intelligent, caring, and infinitely patient in raising their cubs for extended periods, which ranges from 15 to 24 months. And then usually by late summer, the cubs are weaned. Now we'll get into the period of time we're in now, which is late fall. In the summer or late summer and early fall is one of the most critical times when it comes to coexistence. Before bears begin their hibernation, they eat a lot. Bears need to gain tremendous body fat to survive their winter hibernation. The fattening up is called hibernation. And during this time, bears put on an average of 3 to 5 pounds per day and eat about 20,000 calories daily. Because of that, bears will go searching for food wherever they can, which can be a source of human environmental conflicts. This is the time of year when many states receive a lot of bear reports from the public because bears are looking for food. Again, mother bears use the body fat to grow cubs if they're pregnant during that time of year. And if they're yearling cubs, they need those added calories both to survive the winter without eating and also to grow. Then if they've survived until the fall, the cubs re-enter the den with their mother and the whole family will hibernate together again. In the spring, the mother emerges with her yearling cubs from the den. By late spring or early summer, the family breaks up. The cubs, now called yearlings, need to disperse to find their own home range. Females tend to stay close to where they were born, but male yearlings disperse farther. This is to prevent inbreeding for when they get to mating age. The intervals between bear cub litters is generally 2 to 3 years, so bears are slow to reproduce. I realized I had my video shut off. I'm sorry. Bears are extremely shy and typically go out of their way to avoid humans. They're generally not interested in us, but they are interested in food. Researchers even wisely pointed out that each year, millions of interactions between people's environments and black bears occur without any injury to a person. When you hear the commonly used term human-bear conflicts, it's important to note that in Connecticut, nearly or almost all of these conflicts involve bears interacting with things, not humans, but things like toppled bird feeders, garbage cans. These are the conflicts that are easily preventable. As mentioned, the biggest factor involved with these conflicts is food, and in some states, black bear biologists have found that bears flock to human-dominated landscapes when there are food failures in their natural habitat. But in years where there's abundant natural food, they typically avoid these urban areas. And the time when conflicts are highest is during hibernation, when bears are trying to eat as many calories as they can before hibernation. Factors like changing climate, including drought and late freezes, and the loss of habitat and human development have increased the likelihood of natural food shortages. These factors, coupled with the addition of more human food on the landscape, will result in more conflicts with bears in the neighborhood. One of the biggest food attractants for bears is unsecured garbage. Bears have an amazing sense of smell, and your garbage is an appetizing scent to them. In addition to trash, other food attractants like bird feeders, uncleaned barbecue grills, beehives, and outdoor pet food can also unintentionally attract bears into the human neighborhoods they might otherwise avoid. But if a bear is being rewarded with easy access to food near our homes, then it's likely he will come back for more. Each time this happens, he can become more and more tolerant of human presence, and this food conditioning can lead to problematic behavior. Bears that become too tolerant of human activity and seek food rewards in neighborhoods are often labeled as nuisance bears. These are most often mothers with young cubs or young males who have just left their mothers and are still learning how to obtain food. Nuisance bears are often in danger of being killed, but killing or even relocating a bear and not the attractant will only create an opportunity for another bear to move in, and the cycle of conflict and killing will continue. This is why it's important to address the attractant from the start. It's pretty simple. If bears can't find an easy meal in a neighborhood, they won't stay. So now I'd like to pass the baton on to Nicole Rivard from Friends of Animals, who will discuss conflict prevention strategies.
Thank you, Joanne. Hi, everyone. It's critical that we do our part to humanely deal with any interactions with black bears. Fortunately, there are easy, common sense steps you can take to prevent conflicts from occurring in the first place. The most obvious step is to never intentionally feed bears, but to also avoid unintentionally feeding them. If you live in an area where bears also live, like the northwest corner of Connecticut, you should always use a bear-resistant trash can, like the one behind me here in my office. Take out your garbage the morning of pickup rather than the night before, and store your garbage cans in a garage or shed. Bringing in bird feeders March through November is equally important. Even if your feeder is out of reach for a bear, the smell and sight alone can still attract them. And even if they can't reach the feeder, they may explore your property or your neighbors looking for an easy snack. Contrary to popular belief, bears do eat during the day, so removing bird feeders only at night is definitely not sufficient. Also, bears love hummingbird food. Now, this doesn't mean that you can't still attract birds to your backyard. You can plant flowers that attract birds, or add a bird bath or another water feature to your yard, since birds are always looking for fresh water. This helps other pollinators as well. You can also add a nesting box, which several species of birds use. There's a few other options out there to attract birds to your backyard without also attracting a hungry bear. Open compost piles, especially those that include kitchen scraps, are an irresistible treat for bears. Burying compost won't work because bears will easily find and dig it up. But you can help remove this attractant by protecting your compost pile with an electric fence or using an unwelcome mat. These mats deliver a shock when a bear attempts to walk over them, but rest assured, they cause no permanent damage to the footpads of the bears. It's enough of a deterrent, though, to cause the bear to abandon his or her approach. Also, remember to pick up and stash fallen or ripened fruits from trees, because if left on the ground, the fruit can also attract bears to your yard. Please make sure to clean your grill thoroughly after each time you use it. In particular, it's critical to empty the grease trap. Move the grill away from your house when you aren't using it, and clean it regularly with ammonia or bleach. Make sure to not leave any pet food outside. If you feel you do need to feed your pets outside, please feed them in single portions and make sure to remove any food and bowls after feeding them. You should also make sure to store the pet food, as well as chicken or livestock feed, where bears can't see or smell it. And please remember that pets should never be left alone outside. When hiking, be sure to keep your dog on a leash. We've had recent incidents in Connecticut where off-leash dogs chase bears, and this has sadly resulted in 2 mother bears who were protecting their cubs being killed. One case, if you remember, involved a jogger in Simsbury, and another case involved a private homeowner in Thomaston. Remember to keep all bear accessible windows and doors tightly closed, including garage doors. Consider replacing exterior lever style door handles with round knobs. And also never leave food in cars. Bears can cause serious damage to cars, especially if they get trapped inside and can't get out. If you engage in all of these bear-aware behaviors, not only are you protecting yourself and your home, you're also protecting Connecticut's black bears. Again, the most important action is prevention. Modifying our behavior at home and when we enter a bear's home while hiking and camping will modify bear behavior. If a bear who is drawn to your property by food sources and comes close to your house and you're worried about an encounter, make noise with wildlife deterrent horns or noisemakers such as cans filled with coins, or you can simply bang pots and pans. When you're entering their habitat and their homes while you're hiking and camping, please remember to carry bear bells to warn bears of your presence so you don't startle them. As we mentioned before, it's very important to make sure you keep your dogs on 6-foot leashes to ward off encounters. You should also carry bear spray in case an encounter does occur. Remember to carry the bear spray where you can quickly access it, so don't stow it in your backpack. Know how to remove the safety cap or clip before you go hiking. And if you need to use it, hold the can up and ready. Many bears will move away at this point, and you'll not even have to use the spray. But if the bear does approach within 20 to 30 feet, you can spray using both hands. Aim directly in front of the bear's head and a little downward. A cloud of ingredients will billow up from the ground, creating a wall of spray. When the bear reaches the cloud, he or she will definitely feel it. If the bear continues to approach, spray again. Make sure you stay out of the spray, and if possible, try to shoot downwind so you don't spray yourself. Always monitor the bear's activities and do not turn your back on a bear for any reason. When the bear retreats, continue to watch her and move away slowly. Now we're going to move on to bear aware techniques when you're camping. Here are some simple steps to avoid attracting bears. First, remember to set up your camp away from natural food sources and dense cover. When you're hiking with food, make sure to double bag everything. Cook your food at least 100 yards away from your tent, and do not store any food-related items or toiletries inside of your tent. This includes the food itself as well as trash and even the clothes you wear while you're cooking. Remember that before leaving camp, even if it's just for a short period of time, make sure you've cleaned up your cooking area thoroughly. Don't burn food scraps or trash in your fire ring, and don't leave coolers, food, or beverages out. Leaving any kind of food behind, even scraps or trash like wrappers, can cause bears to associate campsites and trails with a free meal. Don't think about burying your trash. If provided, use bear-proof dumpsters and make sure they're locked. It's absolutely essential to store everything in bear-resistant containers and lockers provided at some campsites, or suspended by a rope at least 10 feet above the ground and 6 feet away from the tree trunk. And remember that hungry bears don't only target garbage and human food at your house. Beehives, livestock, and fruit trees can also attract bears. Many states, including Connecticut, allow a person to kill a bear to protect livestock from injury or death. So it's crucial that beekeepers and livestock producers use electric fencing. It's true, bears can get through many barriers, but they will definitely avoid electric fencing. A well-trained guard dog can also be helpful, and be sure to store feed in a bear-resistant container indoors so bears can't smell it. Bears can smell food 2 miles away. So now that we've all given you tips on becoming bear aware, I'm going to turn it over to Laura Simon with the Connecticut Wildlife Rehabilitators Association, who's going to recap and discuss how to turn these tips into action.
Thank you, Nicole, and hello, everybody. Living with bears also means understanding their behaviors and why they do what they do. Yet all too often their behaviors are misinterpreted as aggression, and the result all too often is a dead bear and orphaned cubs. People don't realize that bears are not looking to tangle with us. They don't want to have an altercation with a creature as big as we are. They have a dominance hierarchy, and they use bluff behaviors to communicate who's boss. Some of these bluff behaviors include huffing, jaw popping, ground slapping, and lunging. But this is all too often misinterpreted as a prelude to an attack, which it is not. So if you see a bear, most of the time, just enjoy the moment from afar. But if the bear gets too close or approaches you, don't run. Instead, be big and dominant. Don't play dead either. Instead, invert your jacket over your head, hold up and wave your hands. Just try and make yourself really big. And then back away slowly, maintaining eye contact with the bear all the while. Another important thing you can do is help and to spread the word in your neighborhood. In addition to this webinar, there's a lot of resources out there that you can use. All of our websites contain helpful information on coexisting with bears, so definitely check them out. And if you get a chance, take a look at bearwise.org and bearsmart.com. These are two specialty bear websites that help with coexistence, and they're excellent. And we'll be sure to send you these links in a follow-up email after the webinar. Most communities don't have local ordinances in place that even require bear-resistant trash cans. If your community doesn't have bear preventative waste management policies in place, consider approaching your local town hall officials to introduce one, and to also ask for Bear Smart material to be put on the town's website. Our groups can always help you with that too. And you can also help push for the adoption of town ordinances that prohibit the intentional feeding of wildlife. Solving bear issues has to be an effort that is community-based, with everyone in the neighborhood taking the same preventative steps. Otherwise, one bear feeder can create problems for everyone, including the bears. It's also important to make sure that ordinances are being enforced. Law enforcement is absolutely critical to making sure these bear-aware methods are effective. All the organizations hosting this event today work on protecting bears and would love to work with you on this issue as well. So make sure to sign up for our alerts so that you stay in the loop. And lastly, if you want to help people coexist with bears, there's still a lot you can do. In addition to just sharing this information with friends and family and neighbors and getting involved with our organizations, you can help spread the word on a larger scale. Post this kind of information on social media, in your local next door or patch communities, and write letters to the editor for your local papers. All this makes a tremendous difference in spreading the word. And when you're working with your elected officials on Bear Smart strategies, be sure to tell these elected officials that you care about animals and you vote. Remember, you're not alone in wanting to protect Connecticut's black bear population. We hope that you all learned some useful tips for coexisting with bears and that you all can commit to taking some of these steps to help spread the word. And working together, we can help keep people safe and bears wild. Thank you so much again for taking the time to join us this afternoon. And it looks like we have some time for questions. So just know we'll try to get to everyone, but if we run out of time, please feel free to reach out and we'll be sure to get back to you. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura. We do have a handful of questions. Someone wants to know about putting ammonia in the trash when you put it out.
Can I answer that?
Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
sure. You know, just from an ecological point of view, I don't think it's a good idea. Really, we push people hard to get bear-proof garbage containers because there's so many good designs, and then you don't need to worry at all. I mean, if you have a can that bears can get into and there's no other way to keep them out, you can put some ammonia in, but ecologically, try and get a good bear-proof container, and then you don't have to worry. The bears won't get into your trash.
Yeah, and some of those containers are really expensive, right, Laura? $250. So, and they also have to work with your trash hauler. So you just make sure that it's going to work with your trash hauler. And there's also straps that you can put on that are a lot cheaper. But I mean, the basic message from us is you need to stow your garbage, put it out the morning of pickup. So it's not just sitting out there overnight. So there's sheds that you can put your trash cans into, or into a closed garage.
Wendy, this is Joanne. Also, with respect to the trash cans, we've been, the coalition has been trying to assemble a list of communities where these trash cans are available, where the local trash haulers make them available. We've found some communities, the trash pickup, add a certain percentage to your monthly or quarterly bill if you have a bear-proof can. But what we found interesting is that increasingly more so, we're finding haulers in the Connecticut area making these trash cans available. I know also that Nicole Rivard from Friends of Animals has been in touch with, we actually have a manufacturer of these bear-proof trash cans right in the northwest corner of Connecticut.
Great, thanks, Joanne. Carolyn wants to know where she can purchase a bear unwelcome mat.
She can Google online. There's a number of them. You can just get even one through Amazon.
Great, thank you, Laura.
Mhm.
And she also wants to know, are bear sprays the same as pepper sprays, and any brand recommendations? I'll go ahead and take that. I would make sure that you get a kind of spray that is manufactured for bear spray. It is capsicum, and I think they're basically the same thing, but it's designed to keep bears away for sure. So I don't know about any brands. Do any of you?
I don't know about a particular brand, but they are available. Bear Bells and Bear Spray are available at REI.
Yeah, bear bells are a little bit controversial. I would kind of recommend that you hike in a group with others. That's the biggest thing, is just make noise. Okay, and then Irene wants to know, is there any plan to introduce legislation to ban the feeding of bears on the state level?
Nothing has been formalized yet, but it has been discussed, and it came up last year, just the discussion on it, but a bill was not filed. Local communities have passed local ordinances on the intentional feeding of bears, of wildlife, for example, in Granby, Connecticut. But we're, it's something that may come up this year.
Great, thanks, Annie. Annie, do you have any recommendations about the time of year to hang bird feeders?
Yes, remove them March through November. They should be removed while the bears are eating, and then especially during the fall, late summer, fall, when the bears are in hyperphagia, fattening up for winter hibernation.
Great, thank you. And Julie wants to know, are bears going to move to other areas of Connecticut besides the northwest corner?
Invariably, they will. Yes, they are moving where there's food, and unfortunately, people are providing way too much food in suburban neighborhoods. So they're on the move, and I think we'll continue to see a southern and eastern spread.
Great, thanks, Laura.
Mm-hmm.
Karen wants to know, I have beehives. Is there some kind of spray or smell that would naturally keep bears away from the hives? And we answered that. We don't recommend a lot of chemicals. What we recommend is using electricity. So those unwelcome mats, and for beehives, you probably want to do electric fencing.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most efficacious thing to keep bears away from beehives.
Yes.
And then Robin wants to know, recently, a bear took a pony from a neighbor's yard. Is that a function of leaving the pony out?
We have not heard, we heard about this incident. We don't have the details of it yet, but certainly horses are normally placed in secure barns during the evening. So it's just too many details that we don't know about yet on that particular case.
Right. It's a very rare case. We need to assure people, you know, not to be afraid that their horses and ponies are going to be attacked by black bears. This is, you know, very unusual case.
Great, thanks. Randall wants to know if bears are still active right now since we've got warm weather.
Mhm. Yes, they
Yes.
definitely are in Connecticut. Yes.
Oh,
Great.
Once we
thanks.
get a cold snap, we should see them, you know, or not see them so much. They'll be hunkered down.
Great. And then C wants to know when the weather warms up in winter, do bears come out of the den looking for food?
And we're not seeing that so much in winter. No, they're still pretty much sticking to their normal spring wake up.
Great, thanks, Laura. And I just want to, as Joanne was talking about canid torpor, they are, if they get disturbed, they can wake up. They can spring up from a dead sleep and move if needed, if need be. So it is a little bit different than hibernation. And then Allison wants to know what the status of bear hunting legislation is.
We've been able to successfully defeat it and soundly defeat it for several years straight now. And we actually have more senators now at the state level opposed to a bear hunt than we had in prior years. So we will continue fighting any efforts to institute a bear hunt here. And I'd like to say, Mr. Blanchard's comment, I wanted to thank you for your comment. And yes, we will provide this for you.
And one of the things I wanted to say is that also what we believe is key to these successful efforts of not having a bear hunt is education. So it is efforts like this webinar, and we will hopefully have, this webinar will be available on YouTube, and we're hoping to have other educational opportunities to help spread the word throughout the state. Because we believe that education is key to being able to successfully coexist with wildlife.
And someone wants to know why bear bells are not recommended. There's just a lot of controversy around them about how efficacious they are. And we just know that if people travel in, you know, you've got 2 or 3 people, you're going to make noise and you're not going to surprise a bear. So that's what the best recommendations are. Priscilla wants to know, why did I say that bear-proof garbage cans were expensive when they're essential and available?
Well, the issue is psychological often, because people don't want to pay any more for a garbage can than they've been paying. So something that's, you know, $100 or more of an investment, if they haven't paid it before, they think they shouldn't have to. Instead, they should realize, gee, if I just pay a little more, I won't have a bear problem. It is well worth it. So, you know, it's expensive in terms of what people are used to for garbage cans, but it's not expensive in terms of the problem mitigation success that will result.
Great,
And
thanks,
I know I can speak in my area. USA Hauling is the trash service provider. I believe it's $10 extra per month for bear-proof garbage cans. And many people can afford that, and it's well worth it. But for those who can't, there are other options available, like bringing trash out early morning rather than the night before, and securing it with bungee cords, or trying to just remove it from the bear's access. So there are other options as well.
Annie, I can add to that. The first selectman of Warren, it's not a ordinance, but it's kind of a voluntary program for people to use. He's trying to encourage residents to use the bear-proof trash cans, and he said the same. It's $10 a month extra. So it's a small price to pay to keep people and bears safe, I think.
Right.
Thanks, Nicole. David says, great job on the presentation. How can he help get legislation passed?
Ah, that must be our friend David Michelle.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. That's Representative David Michelle. He's the co-chair of the Animal Advocacy Caucus in the Connecticut Legislature. And he's been a champion for all animal bills in Connecticut. And how can we help? I think pretty much what Laura said at the end of her section, develop relationships with your elected officials and let them know that you care about animals and you vote. That's the leverage you carry, and your elected officials will pay attention for you, and you'll be more effective helping animals if you're a voter, and if you know, let your elected officials know that. And
also contact Annie Hornish.
Yes.
And she will help you.
Follow any of the groups on this call today,
Yes.
and we will all keep you up to date on legislation impacting animals and especially black bears.
Right.
Great,
We all
thanks.
have, we are part of a coalition, and we all have a very large constituent base, and we are all actively involved in lobbying in Hartford. So we work as a team.
Great. Thank you so much, everybody. And that's going to be it for now. I'm going to turn it back to you, Laura.
Okay, well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to contact any of us with any additional questions you might have. And we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Stay safe.